Okay, so I've been gone a while. I'm basically dead in internet years. I've been doing a lot of things, both personal and professional, and I've really been trying to figure out how to get back into YouTube as a whole. And while I was gone, Disney made a bunch of movies that I don't have time to watch, but I figured I would watch a few of them and review them. And this video is only supposed to be like a 10-15 minute video, and the original script I had for it was way too long. So I'm going to quick cut it and try to make this review as fast as possible with still giving you guys a proper review. So the first movie is Raya and the Last Dragon. I didn't really have high expectations going into it because basically the entire movie was spelled out in the trailer. Now my overall review of the plot was that it wasn't bad, however it was cliche and the resolution was very underwhelming. I also believe that there was a very cool premise here. However, I feel like it would have worked better as a Disney Plus show rather than a movie. The movie goes through many different characters and many different locations, and we don't have enough time to explore properly any of these characters or locations within the hour and a half span that the movie was given. We see this problem with the characters as well, as none of them are fleshed out and they all feel very caricaturized instead of being actual characters. The only character in this entire movie that feels any sort of characterization is Namari, the bad guy. Something that I will praise this movie for is their perception of good guys and bad guys. When watching the movie, no one is actually in the wrong. It would have been nice to actually view this fully and actually explore these characters and their thoughts and process, but again, with a limited runtime, you have to get through the plot rather than developing any characters, especially in a movie like this where it's a kids movie and you have to keep everything sort of fast-paced. Another thing that I can praise this movie for, because it's a Disney movie, it obviously looked very nice. The best part about this movie, however, are the fight scenes. It was actually very satisfying to see the Disney animation in these fight scenes. I really liked it because it was more of a 80s or 90s martial arts movie. Overall, the plot was average with a 5 out of 10. The characters didn't really have anything going for them, giving them a 2 out of 10. The conflict was pretty boring except for the actual humans, which again weren't explored that much, which gave it a 4 out of 10. The theme, there wasn't really one. It was more like a very generic, trust everyone, never give up hope kind of thing. Very boring and basic, 3 out of 10. And of course, because it's a Disney movie, the settings were relatively good, and it gets a 6 out of 10. Overall, that only gives the movie a 20 out of 50, which is still a 40% failing E. Now, the next movie was Cruella, which out of all three of the movies that I watched, this was actually probably my favorite. Now, I think that this was very, very interesting because it starts off as this, upcoming woman fashionista kind of movie, which I was really bored with at first, and I figured, probably just because it's not my demographic. And then all of a sudden, about halfway through the movie, it turns into a heist movie, and it's really entertaining. What's weird to me is that the biggest criticisms of this movie that I've seen is the fact that it is an origin movie and that it basically gets rid of the concept that Cruella is this evil person and gives her a backstory, but you kind of knew that going in. The whole point of it was supposed to be an origin movie. It would be weird to have an origin movie and not explain any of the iconic details that surrounds the character. The characters weren't really that interesting. A lot of them didn't even have names, or if they did, I didn't remember them. The bad guy was pretty boring. It was basically just Cruella de Vil as the bad guy. I did like that it explained that the reason why Jasper and Horace deal with Cruella's evil or what looks like abusive nature is the fact that they actually care for her and see her as almost a sister in a sort of sense. I also thought it was very interesting to see throughout the movie Cruella struggling to decide if she wanted to be good or bad, or if she even had a choice. And overall, besides it being kind of boring and the actors and actresses not really having that much impact on the film, the movie was relatively entertaining. Overall, the plot had its ups and downs, but I'm willing to give it a 6 out of 10. The characters were pretty boring besides 1 or 2 good characters, making it a 4 out of 10. The conflict was 50-50. being the actual external conflict really, really boring, but watching Cruella struggle to decide to be good or bad was actually relatively interesting. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. There wasn't really a theme, so 0 out of 10. And the overall setting, as I said before, I understand what they were going for, but I don't really know if it worked, so that gives it a 5 out of 10. Now, not including the theme, this movie would get a 20 out of 40. And obviously, if you include the theme, it gets a 20 out of 50. Now, I do think that it deserves to be at least a 60 to give it a passing score, but with the theme being non-existent, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at the very even 20, 40, 50% failing E. The final movie I'll be talking about is Luca. Now, I had absolutely no idea what Luca was going to be. I knew it was going to be something about a sea monster, and I'm usually very excited for Pixar movies, so I was very excited going into this. However, I can say that I was thoroughly disappointed in this movie. The plot was really, really basic. A person from a different land goes to a land where they're told is bad, but it actually isn't bad. Everyone is just misunderstood. The movie wasn't funny, and at almost no point was it emotional, which are the two things that you watch a Pixar movie for. Everything about this movie was extremely by the book, very basic, and there were no risks taken. The one part that was a little funny was the parents basically just throwing water on random children to try to expose Luca. The characters were just as boring. Overprotecting mother, clueless father. Our main character, Luca, is basically just Ariel. The one character that I do like is the dad. The reason why I like the dad is because they gave him a disability with him being an amputee, missing an arm. Now, at first, when they showed it, I thought that they were going to go with a sea monster attacked me, and that's why I hate sea monster route. But they surprised me by just making him an armless guy. He was born with it, and I think that that is really cool that the most intimidating dude in the entire movie only has one arm, and it wasn't for any reason other than he was just like that. And I was really upset because the setting of this movie is Italy, and now I personally have never been to Italy, but I assume Italy looks really, really pretty. You would think that they would have some sort of amazing settings like the rest of Disney, but there was nothing in this entire movie that stood out to me. Now, again, as I said earlier, the plot was boring. It gets a 1 out of 10. There was nothing original about this entire plot. Characters get a 3 out of 10. Nothing original about these characters except for the dad. The conflict, there were a lot of conflicts to bounce around with, so I'll actually give that a raise because they actually were able to keep you entertained with moving from story to story, but it didn't feel rushed or jagged like it did in Raya, so I'll actually give that a 7 out of 10. The theme is a good theme, maybe a little overused in this day and age, but also could very well arguably need to be used more in this day and age. Don't judge a book by its cover. 5 out of 10. And again, the settings. It's so disappointing that there weren't more amazing set pieces, if you can call them that. So I'm going to give the settings a 4 out of 10. It gets a 20 out of 50, 2.5, 40%. In a word, disappointed. These three movies had so much potential behind them, and they all dropped the ball. They were almost all of them. I understand that you can't make a great movie every week. But you would think with Disney's time, energy, and money, they would make something so much more than mediocre. Maybe they're because they're kids' movies and they don't need to put as much effort into them. Or maybe it's because these movies are no longer my demographic. Maybe I've just outgrown Disney. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, please give me a thumbs up. I could really appreciate it. I'm trying to get back into this YouTube thing as best and as smoothly as I can because I do enjoy it. I think it's really fun. And until next time, my name is Dion. And I'm out. Whee!